On today's Locked On Nationals, we're going to be getting into Dylan Crews and seeing if he can reach his ceiling in the year of 2025 and really also beyond, because Dylan Crews, he's got a sky-high ceiling, but can he actually reach the peak of his powers?
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as the show page at LO_Nationals for all your latest Nationals news and notes. Make sure to check us out over on Twitter. And while you're at it, search up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcast. Later on in today's show, a former National has signed with the New York Mets. And is this going to be the first time we heard that a former Nat signs with the New York Mets? I'll tell you who that veteran is and get into the Mets starting to take some Nationals. Can the Nationals start taking some Mets players? Hint, Pete Alonso. We'll discuss that a little bit later on in today's program. In the second segment, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant. The timing of this Kyle Finnegan trade rumors sitting here today makes no sense. It just doesn't. I'll tell you why it makes no sense and why I'm upset with those rumors in the second segment of today's program. You will not want to miss that. I've got some words. But now we start off discussing Dylan Crews and will he reach his ceiling? And if you want to be reminded of what his ceiling is, best hitter in all of baseball kind of prospect, power, great defense, really a five-tool talent. Can he reach that in 2025 and beyond? We'll have that discussion for you, but today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. So let's jump into it with discussing Dylan Crews, because the number 2 overall pick back in the 2023 draft, he was the best college hitter to come out of the draft, and really probably over the last decade plus, Dylan Crews was worth all the hype. But in his first major league season, really down in the minors as well, Dylan Crews wasn't like some barn burner. He is the number 1 prospect in all of baseball right now, according to MLB.com. He's just a few at-bats away from getting that wiped away, and his prospect status will be out the window. But what is your confidence from 1 to 10 that Crews will reach his ceiling in 2025 and beyond? I'm sitting right now at a 7 out of 10. And at points this season, when I was watching Dylan Crews, whether it was down in the minor leagues or whether it was up in the majors with the Nationals when he eventually made his debut, I was kind of caught in between the middle here. I just wasn't 100% sure that Dylan Crews would be able to reach the ceiling of taking him at number 2 overall. Because the whole discussion was this. Wyatt Langford, going on later on in the draft that year, made his debut for the Rangers at opening day, and at points looked pretty good, but ultimately kind of struggled down the stretch for the Rangers. But even then, down in the minor leagues, he worked his way up to AAA last year. In only, 2 months of action down in the minors? So people were already kind of whispering, like, were the Nationals sure to take Dylan Crews at number 2 overall while missing on a Wyatt Langford type who probably does have the higher ceiling considering his tools of, well, he's not a great defender, but at the plate, he could hit 40 to 50 home runs someday, win a batting title. That's the kind of stuff that was coming out of Wyatt Langford last season. But I'm sitting here pretty damn confident that Dylan Crews will be able to reach that goal. Maybe it's not 2025, but certainly in 2026 and 2027 and beyond there. This guy is still a very talented prospect. He is still going to be a very good baseball player. That is what I'm sure of. So sitting here today, kind of weighing all the different tools that Dylan Crews can bring to the table, I sit at a 7 out of 10 is how confident I am that he will reach that ceiling. And let's define his ceiling here. Gold Glove caliber center fielder / right fielder. You saw that more than anything this season. last year at the draft and really just kind of questioning his overall prospect status, people weren't sure where he would play in the outfield. Was he going to stick in center field? Was he going to play in right field? As far as this Nationals organization goes. But I think one thing is for sure, if he's in right field, or if he's in center field, or if he even plays left field, this guy will be a Gold Glove caliber defender. And I think that is a fair kind of expectation for him at this point. You saw the arm talent on display early on this season as well, having a couple assists here and there, making great defensive plays, and really just roaming the outfield in a spectacular way over at Nationals Park. His offense, really what was the highlight of Dylan Crews, the reason why the Nationals drafted Dylan Crews, was how good this guy will be offensively. His ceiling, batting champion, sneaky power that has potential to hit 30-plus home runs. That is where Dylan Crews' ceiling is really kind of matched, as far as no one else can really hit that point. I think Dylan Crews today, is he going to bat 300 this season? I could not tell you that. In fact, I'd probably bet against it. Just because we have not seen that throughout the minors so far. And his development will take time. I think the one key thing about Dylan Crews is this. His ceiling is still much higher than any Nationals prospect sitting here today, as far as offensive players go. Pitchers, different story. Sakura, I think, might be in a league of his own. But going forward, I am confident that Dylan Crews will reach his ceiling. My one thing with talking about Crews and just kind of getting into his ceiling, like what makes me so confident? And you might be a little bit less confident. You might be more confident in this point. You might be thinking that you're a 10 out of 10. This guy is going to be an MVP caliber player. But I am still pretty confident. Like 70% out of 100%, that's pretty good. That's a passing grade. I do think Crews will reach that point. But what makes me so confident is not his track record with the Nats. It is the fact that all these different outlets, all these different publications, whether it be MLB.com, Baseball America, Baseball Prospectus, whatever it is, they are still high on Dylan Crews. These are the experts. You could say myself, maybe I don't know. I don't know if I'm an expert or not. But the confidence that they show Dylan Crews and that this guy is going to be a stud defender, really good at the plate, well above average offensively. And if he can hit for power, which I think was the big overwhelming question, can this guy reach 30 to 35 home runs in a single season? I think he answered that door pretty damn well this season. You saw the power on display, whether it was in AAA or even up in the bigs. Dylan Crews does have that tool in his belt. But is it going to be as consistent as some would like it to be? I think that is another question. I think that what kind of separates him from a Wyatt Langford type. People are always wondering, well, Wyatt Langford is going to hit for power. And for me, I always say power is what wins in today's game. But just because power is what wins in today's game, number one, does not mean that Dylan Crews will be an electric baseball player. If he hits 30-plus home runs, that is a great thing to have. And then also on top of it, if Dylan Crews, let's say he hits 20, 25 home runs, yet he still bats like 280 with an 840 OPS, that is a big success. Because again, we always balance this out here. And I'm an offensive kind of guy here. He's going to play great defense. That question and that really to-do list, we've checked that box. He's going to be great defensively in right field or even down the line in center field. I think sitting here today, I have to go with an overwhelming sort of confidence as far as Dylan Crews goes. This guy will be an MVP caliber player someday down the road. Will it be 2025? I don't think so. He's still going to develop. He's still young. He's early on into his career. He was just drafted a year and a half ago. He was in college taking classes 2 years ago, sitting here today, getting ready for finals. It's going to take some time. But down the road, this guy will reach his ceiling. And that is something I certainly do not doubt sitting here today. Something I do doubt: the timing of the Kyle Finnegan trade rumors. Make it make sense. In my opinion, this makes no sense whatsoever. It just does not. And if the Nationals do decide to trade Kyle Finnegan, I've got some thoughts. I'll tell you what those thoughts are after we tell you guys about some of our very good friends over at Gametime. And of course, you guys, you know all about Gametime, and I can tell you about the super deals that are coming up and how good it is. And of course, the other tiers of deals that come with Gametime. Gametime, if whether you're going to the Wizards game tonight as they take on the Boston Celtics, well, I can tell you this: I go up to Gametime as I walk up to Capital One Arena. I open up the app. I get my views from your seats right on your phone. And of course, you are 2 clicks away from having those tickets in your hand, walking into the arena, and you get your flash zone deals. And of course, you have a curated deal that makes it easier to find the best price on great seats, not even just for sports, but also comedy, theater, whatever it is out there. You can find tickets over at Gametime. And of course, Gametime Picks, it's a curation that makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, and of course, even theater over at the Kennedy Center. Whatever it is, you can find it, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON MLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It is game time. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen your every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Check us out over on YouTube. Just search Locked On Nationals for the video portion of the show, or wherever you get your podcast, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Google Play, wherever it is, you can find Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcast. So again, check us out, Locked On Nationals, and hit that subscriber button. I don't know if many of you saw this, and if you watched yesterday's show with Bobby Blanco from MASNsports.com, I got his thoughts on this as well. John Morosi from MLB Network was asked if there were any closers kind of being shopped around on the trade market. Brewers closer Devin Williams was brought up. Ryan Helsley of the St. Louis Cardinals was brought up. And also, Nats closer Kyle Finnegan was brought up in this scenario. Oh boy. This does not make any sense. The timing of this makes no sense whatsoever. And let me tell you why. The Nationals were obviously shopping Kyle Finnegan at this past year's deadline, coming off an All-Star appearance a few weeks prior to that deadline, having his best season to date, was establishing himself as a legit closer in baseball, or at the very least, a setup guy in an 8th-inning scenario. Kyle Finnegan's talent and everything was coming together here, right at the perfect time to trade him at this past deadline. And now you want to shop him this offseason. Make that make sense. And I can tell you why it makes no sense to trade him right now. Think back to when the Juan Soto deal happened. Why was it such a big deal to trade him at that deadline and not wait for the offseason, where you have all the time in the world to shop different strategies and see how you can maximize that deal? Mike Rizzo said it himself. Juan Soto's value would never be higher entering that deadline than what it was if you were to wait for that 2022-2023 offseason. If you waited for that offseason, you would not have gotten a Harleen Susana, and you probably would not have gotten, let's say, a CJ Abrams or a Mackenzie Gore in that deal. And why would you not get that? You would not have another postseason of Juan Soto for every team that trades for him. The value would go down. This is a much more micro way looking at it with Kyle Finnegan, because he is not Juan Soto. He's not one of the best closers in all of baseball, in my opinion. I think he's a fine closer. But even then, if you're a postseason team making a hunt for October, you're probably not going to have Kyle Finnegan as your closer unless there's an injury in place. You could have had Kyle Finnegan, whatever team trades for him, for 2 postseason runs. Someone who will be solid in the back end of the bullpen and someone who has proven to be an all-star caliber player. Why would you not have just traded him at that deadline? The Nationals have never said this, at least I don't think. But I can tell you this, they definitely had offers on the table for Finnegan that they, said, we're good on this. We're going to keep our all-star closer for now, and that's that. But now if you are taking calls on this, and again, I don't know if teams are reaching out to the Nationals about Finnegan or if the Nationals are reaching out to other teams about trading Finnegan. It could be either way. But still, if you are going to trade Finnegan, why would you not have traded him this past deadline? Because one thing is a guarantee here. His value, if you were to trade him now, will be lesser than what it was at this last deadline. You would have gotten less. You were not making a postseason run this past October just a month ago. We knew that. You knew that at the deadline when you traded away Hunter Harvey. You knew that when you traded Lane Thomas. And you knew that when you traded away Dylan Floro. These were things that the Nationals knew. And Mike Rizzo knew. And also knowing Mike Rizzo, why it frustrates me so much is that this guy is so good at generating trades. It's one of the best things. It is why he is such a great GM. The Juan Soto deal was a slam dunk success. And it has the Nationals on hopefully a brink of a postseason explosion here coming up soon. But it's so frustrating because the timing of this is what makes no sense. And I cannot get past that fact. If Mike Rizzo were to trade Kyle Finnegan, it would be frustrating. Because again, number one, you're telling us, well, they're not saying this, but just speaking for the Nationals real quick, they look at themselves thinking that they have an all-star closer. If you have an all-star closer and you think you're going to succeed this season, then okay, that's a good thing. The Nationals are going to compete. But even then, there's a lot of question marks. And also, National source from Twitter brought this up, and I thought it was a really good point. Maybe the timing of this does make a little bit more sense considering he's set to make around $8.5 million this season. And, the Nationals, they're not printing out money nowadays. This has not been the Nationals of the 2010s where they did have a top 7 payroll basically every single season. It's not the same team. It's just not. So maybe they want to clear some cash in order to sign other guys to come in here and kind of spread that money around the bullpen or spread it around a starting pitcher or whatever it is. But still, I can't get over the fact that this does not make sense. You should have traded Kyle Finnegan at this past deadline. And even then, let's have an honest conversation about Kyle Finnegan. He's good, but he's replaceable. And also looking back into that, after the Nats won the 2019 World Series, where did Kyle Finnegan come from? The Nationals, they signed him as a minor league free agent, and they signed him to a major league contract. That was a great signing by Mike Rizzo because Kyle Finnegan has made an all-star team. He is now your closer, maybe for this season, but really over the last 2 years, and he's been good. Again, all-star caliber kind of player. I have faith in Mike Rizzo, number one, finding another Kyle Finnegan. He has done this over his career. Good GMs can find talent seamlessly anywhere. But what I am frustrated with is why you would not trade him at this past deadline. His last month of the season was kind of a disaster. In which, by the way, his track record shows that as well. So as you ramp up for an October race, if it is this season in 2025, make it make sense. Over the last 2 seasons, Kyle Finnegan has kind of unraveled himself right there as you get ready for October baseball. And if you are getting ready for October this season, are you really going to have that much faith in Finnegan? That is why you should have traded him at this past deadline. Get the value for him while it's as high as it is. Because maybe you look at the value this offseason and it's like, all right, this checks the box. It's probably still going to be less than what it was at the deadline. Teams that are desperate for bullpen pieces, teams that need closers, teams that need eighth inning guys, they're willing to give up a little bit more, probably just to make that run this past season and also going forward. So the timing of this Finnegan thing, frustrating. What do you think about it? Let me know. Tweet at me at RyanClary11 or comment in the YouTube section. Again, search Locked On Nationals and hit that subscriber button. Now, let's get into a former Nat signing with the New York Mets. Isn't going to be the first time we say that a former Nat signed with the New York Mets this offseason. We'll discuss that after we tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. And of course, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. You can get a hunch in the middle of the game. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And the Cowboys take on the Commanders this weekend. Is it going to be a Jaden Daniels get-right game? I think it is. I'm taking the Commanders on the money line and also a Jaden Daniels anytime touchdown scorer. And again, if it's your first time betting with FanDuel, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So again, Cowboys, they're going to lose. So take that Commanders money line and take that Jaden Daniels anytime touchdown score. And all you have to do is go to FanDuel.com and never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Let's get into this. A former National has signed with the New York Mets. You may be asking who? Probably already know. Joey Meneses. He has signed a minor league deal with the New York Mets with an invite to spring training. And here's the thing. There are a lot of Joey Meneses lovers out there. Back in 2022, when you trade away Juan Soto and Josh Bell, the team was awful. The worst team in all of baseball. Joey Meneses was that bright spot. Legit, the second half of 2022, here were the best hitters in all of baseball in that second half. Aaron Judge and Joey Meneses. That's what it was. He was that good down the stretch. Started in 2023, and then it all went downhill. Joey Meneses became the Joey Meneses that we expected. You've never heard of this guy. Although he had some really good years down in the minors. He bounced around from team to team, was in the Braves before the Nationals, went overseas. Joey Meneses bounced around everywhere, made his major league debut with the Nationals, and became a MLB caliber kind of player, which is all good, but still. It's nice to see Joey Meneses land somewhere else because, again, I don't know about you. I was tired of the Joey Meneses experience. I've seen it. I've lived it. I'm good on that. The Nationals, they have to move on, and they did. He's gone. He's with the New York Mets. Now, here's the thing. Will this be the last former National to sign with the New York Mets this offseason? I'm starting to think that the Mets might be the favorites to land Juan Soto. Just all the different rumors out there at this point, there is one thing that scares me the most. Steve Cohen. He is going to give him the biggest contract offer no matter what, in my opinion. Seriously. I think he's going to offer him $600 plus million. And is he worth that? Absolutely. This guy, I hate to admit it, but he scares me. And he probably should scare you. If Juan Soto is back in the NL East for the Mets, would I hate Juan Soto? No, I can't hate him. He's done too much for this team, even just in his limited time here with the Nationals. But it scares me. And unfortunately, I don't think this is going to be the last time we say a former National is signing with the New York Mets, And that former National ain't going to be Joey Meneses only. Could be Juan Soto. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good one. Go Nats.